Oh, no, Manny.
Well, here we are.
He's
Uh,
back.
I know it was just messing up on my end. I don't know why, but no, here we are again. Once back to Orange and Blueprints podcast. Here, I don't know why it happened. I think it's just maybe it's that type of week, but it was just I don't know what happened. But welcome again for another edition for the Orange and Blueprints podcast. It's been an exciting weekend over here. Well, I was your host Manny. Oliveris is here, but Diego is out sick. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it's not acting well. Diego's sick, maybe. But we got we got Theo here. Theo Lloyd-Hughes. Say hello to everyone, Theo.
Hello, hello. Thanks so much for having me. What an honor. Love all the Bayou City crew, and it's great to see you, Manny.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know what's happening with my computer, but it's one of those weeks. But we're just here to. I know the Dynamo's playing, but we're just here to a recap of what's going on with the NWSL and then Houston Dash. I know it's been a crazy ride over the season so far. I know it's been some common season for them, and but yet they're still playoff contention, 1 point away from playoffs, but well, it's crazy, and then but we'll see how it goes, and then of course we're going to preview Friday's game against Portland. So I think you just go over real quick, Theo. Past man, it was 3 days ago. What Seattle? It's just quick how these days are going by. Seattle Rain versus Houston Dash. Houston wins 1-0 by a Maggie Graham goal. The first half was not very convincing. It was very cagey defensive. Both teams were canceling each other out. I think there was a point that only one shot per team, and none of them were on target. And yet
Mm.
the script flipped on the second half. Both teams made adjustment. Both teams made substitution, and became an opener game. And then of course, Maggie got her goal that made a difference. Interesting, Maggie is the top scorer for the dash, which is on her rookie season, which is pretty insane. But her goal was the goal that made the difference. Just want to know your overall thoughts, Theo, on this game.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good performance. I think we're still very young in the season, very young into the Fabrice Couture era, but the signs of improvement have been really, really clear, and the signs of buy-in from the players and the little passages of play that are getting more and more consistent, I think have been really encouraging. And this was another game where maybe the Dash did a little bit more defending than you might expect, and that's consistent again with the Gotham game a few weeks, a couple months ago, whenever it was, 5-6 weeks ago, which ended 0-0, and the 2-0 defeat to KC were all quite similar in that, for whatever reason, Fabrice, and we can get into it, I think maybe because Avery Patterson and Maggie Graham are two of the key players, but for whatever reason, he has prioritized this sort of 3-4-3 formation, playing with three centre backs, and it gives you just a lot of central bodies. It gives you a lot of ways you can close down space and get really compact, and that's sort of what he's liking right now. And that sort of defensive shape off the ball, and a lot of easy, because you have more bodies, they're sort of easy to make short passes when you have the ball. So the Dash are actually having more possession than we've sort of ever seen before, but you're also seeing a lot of compact play, and not necessarily much speed at the moment. But I guess to focus on Seattle, I thought it was a good performance, a very, very, very committed defensive performance. Not much attacking football, but I think the goal was a really amazing burst into life. We saw a lot of great little intricate movements and decisions from players, and they were all working together. Yasmin Ryan winning the turnover, Ryan Garees, noticing that the wing back for Seattle was out of position. She attacks the space, and then Maggie Graham makes that amazing run. So that was kind of a long answer, but all in all, I think it was a good performance that, like, what I'm trying to say is I think it's a learning. It's still this team is still in the learning phase. They're still figuring things out. The lineup is Fabrice is getting closer to maybe what he wants, but it feels like it's still developing, right, Manny?
Yeah, I think so. I think I feel the same way. I think it's like I think this is sort of the starting 11 you'll see on for
Yeah,
further games. But I think what's interesting for me is Maggie Graham. First she was more in the central
breakout.
six, in the six.
Oh,
When
at the beginning of the season. Yeah,
yeah, like I think her evolution, the positions, six, then a 10, then a left back, and then
yeah,
like somewhere in the front line, and now in this right wing position.
inverted winger thing. I really like the way the position he's put her on now, and it's a really good point, Manny, that she has moved around a lot this season, and it's sort of like there's been a lot of 3-4-3, but Graham has moved around in it, and I think what's really good about where she is right now is her speed, especially her speed over 20 yards. Let's say the
Mhm.
burst, the early acceleration is so much better than a lot of other players on the squad. That whether it's in defensive moments or in attacking moments, she's able to really give the dash a jolt when a lot of that other build-up play can be a little bit slower. So she feels like she's doing a lot of work, Maggie, in a lot of good little positions on the pitch.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that she gives that good energy, and maybe because she's eager to, as a rookie, to make an impact. So it could be that as
I
well.
think it's her personality too. Like, I think
Yeah,
she really gets stuck in, and it really works.
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It gives a team a fresh look up front.
Can I
Uh,
mention something else about Seattle?
Go ahead.
Abby Smith,
Yeah,
first performance. Jane benched out the blue.
yeah.
Um, Probably one of the more interesting moves we've seen. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Jane Campbell, when fit, right, when she's not injured, must have played 98% of the games at which she's been available for the Houston
Hmm.
Dash since 2017. So the idea of benching Campbell to give Smith a look, which is basically what Fabrice said after the game, that, she'd been training well. He wants to give players who are training well and fighting for a spot, he wants to reward them and their hard work. So you saw Jane Campbell and Paige Nielsen in the centre back position come out, and both those
Hmm.
players had played every minute of the season. And then Fabrice just said, "Hey, we're going to kind of mix it up and give some of the competing players, a chance." So that was an interesting thing about Seattle as well. It's just like, again, a little bit of the roll of the dice, a little bit of that kind of cultural behind the scenes piece that Fabrice is working on.
No, and then I think I was look what Dustin was pretty much just highlighting on that. I think for it was like I think when you first see it on paper, you're like, okay, what's happening? Why is? But then if you look into the post shot expected goals, that one's you want the stat you want to look for goalkeepers. In the NWSL, Jane is the third worst in this
Wow,
season. Yeah,
that's a
she's
good spot. I would not have guessed that.
yeah, I wouldn't guess it either. And Dustin El Jefe brought it out to me. I was like, because she's at negative 1.1 post shot expected goals
Yeah, in
for
the
this
last two
season.
seasons, I bet she was probably the number one in 2023, and then I bet last year she was probably like a top three.
Yeah. And then of course, Abby Smith with her performance, not only she made a good performance, she also made team of the week on attacking thirds, number 11 for this week's for NWSL match day. So do you think I think we see a little bit of Fabrice right now, his personality. I think for a young coach, I think he did it with Barbara challenging Barb, benching Barb.
Mm,
I think try and mix up the I think mixing up making a statement, I think for players. I think he always mentions in his press conference that, we players are competitive enough that any player can deserve to start. I think is that helping the team a lot, knowing that maybe your spot is not secure, you have to keep performing.
definitely. I mean, like I said, I think the performances haven't been perfect. They haven't shown every element of what this team can do, but I don't think you can question the buy-in, and I don't think you can question the little relationships, the little moments across the pitch that look like they're getting more and more cohesive, and that comes from building those relationships between the players. And if you are, a player trying to break into this team and you feel like you can get opportunities, that's going to make you more hungry, that's going to make you more excited. And so I think we've seen that coming through in a lot of players, even players like Evelina Duljan, who I really like, young Swedish player who's come off the bench in the first 4 matches before picking up an ankle injury. She was someone who I didn't have much expectation for, and I think she came in and was able to offer a lot. And I know a lot of people are questioning the minutes for Michelle Alozier. Like, people are like, shouldn't she be playing more? Shouldn't Diana Ordonez be playing more? But I think, if you've got a really competitive squad and you're kind of setting out, this is how I imagine everyone competing, I think it says a lot about the respect for the head coach right now, that it seems to be working, even if there is maybe some names where you would think they'd be playing more.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think what he's doing right now, it's helping the team. I think, it's still building blocks. I think at first you see growing pains. This is just through, growing pains at the moment. Not everything's set in stone. These players are still finding themselves in a new system. The coach is still finding himself. And I think we're starting to see little by little, what new changes he's implementing. And I think so. And I won't be surprised if Abby Smith starts the next game. I think she deserves it, But
that'd be interesting. I'd be shocked, but that'd be interesting.
No, I'll be shocked too. But I think just off her performance, you want to.
She played well. First game in 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. She played well, and I love Abby Smith. I went to UT at the same time with her actually in Austin, so. She's one of those players I've always had more of a connection with than a lot of other ones in the league. She had an amazing goal kick in college. She was sort of famous for these big kicks, and she's really made herself a bit of almost a better keeper the older she's got in the NWSL. I think her shot stopping and her decisions in, or her reflexes in kind of split second decisions have always been very good.
Yeah, I think that's why goalkeepers last longer in the game, because they're aged like fine wine. They get smarter, they get better, they get
I told you, Abby Smith has only gotten better with age.
So it was also up to Fabrice, what he's done. But I think my point, I think the big question, I keep talking to Diego about it. I don't know if you listened to previous podcasts about the situation with Diana. I think when she came back from her injury, I thought, okay, it will ease her in little by little.
Yeah.
But she only played, I was like, less than 60 minutes in this season after being available. So. And this game, she had an excused absence. We don't know the details, but I was starting to get worried. Should we get worried, or should we just see how it goes?
I've got no reason to say get worried. Like it would be purely speculative to say get worried. I think she's a player who has struggled in Houston by her own admission. She struggled in Houston by everyone's expectations of Diana, who through college and in her first year at North Carolina was one of the best finishers in her age group in the country. This is someone who, the way she can peel off a defender, the way she can finish one touch, especially in the air, was up there with the best. I think she has come into a Houston team that has really struggled to create chances, and as a player who relies on service, it's not always been her fault that her goal scoring and her sort of her finishing hasn't necessarily followed in Houston. But I think this is the first time where she's not really getting the minutes, because in those first 2 seasons, she was often sort of the number one choice, right? And right now, that's Messiah. And like you said, she's also had availability issues. I think the win against Utah, which wasn't that different in some ways to the Seattle win. Mostly a lot of defensive football, mostly a lot of patient build-up, waiting for a hole in the opposition defense. Diana came off the bench in that game, and I thought really caused some problems. Was a really nice physical threat. Was a nice link-up player for someone like Maggie Graham or Yasmin Ryan to actually play off one touch. But in that game at home, and you and me were both there, Manny, I think.
Yeah.
She missed that one-on-one.
Yeah, she did.
And I think that was a classic case where she sort of got that chance where she was played through on goal, one-on-one with the keeper, and you think, oh, the old Diana maybe would have scored that. And you saw a bit of that rust. You saw a bit of that sort of, she still is not in her rhythm. Her contract will be up at the end of the year. So I think we'll find out in 5-6 months what her future says in Houston. But I wouldn't really be worried. I would just say this is a player who's still very young. And although she's been around for a while, she's still very young. And for whatever reason, she just hasn't found her rhythm in Houston.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think one of those sad stories. I think it's turning out to be. We don't want it to be, but it's turning out to be. A striker with a lot of talent not working out in in one year team. So we just hopefully it it goes up from here, but it just you never know how it.
Yeah, she's not even 24 yet. I think
Yeah,
it may not even be in Houston. That's what I'm saying. Like, Dash
exactly.
fans who dreamed of when she arrived that she was sort of the answer. I could understand that. Yeah, it hasn't really worked out, but I kind of feel like if she gets in the right setup again, she gets in the right team, I could see her being very, very successful. Just maybe it's not going to be in Houston.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think when I remember her coming in, it was after her rookie season, top scorer. And then I think Dash fans got really excited because she came here to challenge Ebony Salmon for her position.
Yeah,
Ebony Salmon left, and you're like, okay, Diana's gonna be our future from now on.
yeah, and,
And
and Deanna's, she's a real competitor. She loves the fans. She loves Texas. She's from the state. She likes big moments. I think, the way she decided to play for Mexico and the way she's worn the Mexico national team shirt, I think it's a player with a lot of pride who really likes sort of a big moment and knows how to rise to the occasion. So there was so much to like about what she could offer to Houston. And yeah, for many different reasons, it just hasn't clicked.
yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how it goes. But Theo, it's been 1/3 of the NWSL season for the Houston Dash. What I think I want to just to reflect. What has the Dash met your expectations? Go above it or gone below your expectations so far in the season?
I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast and figure out exactly where I said the Dash
I
would be.
I think you say they will finish just missing the playoffs.
Okay, so I feel like I'm in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they've met my expectation. I don't think this squad is much better than where they are,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't think they're worse. Like, I kind of feel like they're right where they should be. I would say though that they've maybe exceeded my expectation in some of the passages of play and some of the possession football. I think I was skeptical about how good Fabrice or how quickly Fabrice was going to be able to get them holding onto the ball and having more intricate build up. And I think that has looked pretty good. I think you can see it's not necessarily progressing into the final third. It's not necessarily creating high quality chances, but that takes a lot of time. But just in terms of ball control and, we saw a few errors in the first few games, but they weren't really like poor passes. It wasn't really like missed controls. It was more just like not reading the danger or not covering, an extra run when you turn the ball over. And Maggie Graham's a great example. I actually thought she turned over the ball a couple of times against Seattle and looked quite vulnerable. And then, the Dash get their own interception, and she looks great. So I think the ball control's been better than I thought it would be. The Dash averaged 53% possession, which is mad for a team that's never been that good on the ball.
Yeah.
And I think structurally, like we said, defensively, the commitment has been amazing when they do need to shut things down. And the high pressing, the kind of the interceptions and the kind of like trying to make it difficult for other teams to play out their build, I think has been really good. I think what has lacked, but like I said, I don't think it's necessarily not meeting expectation, is that the goals aren't coming.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of high chance creation. I think Yasmin Ryan's playing very well. I actually think she leads the league in expected assists, but she's not like she's almost like working quite hard on her own in the final third. She doesn't really have another person to play off. I think the Utah game was a great example. We talked about Deanna missing that chance, but Delaney Sheehan had to score an absolute screamer to win the game 1-0. They're just like, there wasn't those really high quality chances falling. But, a third of the way through the season, Fabrice's first season, I think where they are is pretty good, actually. I think the green shoots, the seeds are there. What do you think?
No, yeah, I think so. I don't think I think it's just the beginning 3 games, 4 games. It was kind of. I think the hype was too much. I think for me, I think like, whoa, I was like, I think just barely losing to Washington, winning Chicago, and then getting a draw in Gotham. You're like, okay, this is a different team. But I think once
Mm.
the game starts to roll out, you're like, okay, never mind. We're going back to the same old Dash. But I think,
Oh, well, I don't. I mean, I don't think they look like the same old Dash. Though I think that's my point. Is that
yeah,
like
yeah,
there are little bits that you're like, oh, that really feels like the beginning of something.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's. I think I was trying to get to that. Get
Oh
to
yeah,
that. You're like, yeah, I
because the
think
result. If you looked at the results, like you could maybe be saying that, but it's like the performances I think have been better. The
yes,
performance
exactly.
levels I think are really good. I actually think maybe the performance levels are a playoff team to some extent, but it's just like there isn't enough high quality to get results over the line.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think that was the point I was trying to get to. I think we're on the cusp, but I think we need a little bit more to get over that threshold to get to that to get actual results. I think at the end of the day, performance is great and everything, but people will look at results, and how you get to the playoffs.
Well,
But
and just going back to like forwards, I don't think this squad with Messiah Bright and Diana Ordonez is the only true center forwards. It's like I don't think this squad is good enough to get in the playoffs with only those two forwards.
no, no,
Like,
I think
you know what I mean? It feels like you
yeah,
need someone else.
no, I feel like in the summer they need to get a forward,
Yeah, and I don't
like
know if that's going to happen in July. I don't know if it's going to happen in November, but like that's the gaping hole for me is you need a 10 goal a season striker.
yeah, yeah, striker. So I don't know who's available. I don't know who's available. Theo, you come on, you should know who's
I
available.
should know.
Can we get Alessia
I'll
Russo?
I'll throw out a name. I've got no. This is not coming from
Any real
any
sources?
real source, but it's more like here's a player who's available. That people should have on their radar, which is
They'll be like Diego, Sam Kerr.
no Svendis Jane Jonsdottir, the Icelandic forward who's played in Germany for Wolfsburg for the past 4 years.
Oh,
4 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Her contract just expired, and she just announced this week that she'll be leaving the club at the end of the season in June. So, one of the best young forwards
Yeah.
in Europe, Icelandic. She'll be at the Euros, so you can get excited for the Women's Euros. She'll be out there with Iceland, but I don't know where she's going. And she's announced, on Monday, I think, that she's available. So that would be one to watch. I think if the Dash are able to get her as a free agent, that could be massive.
I think that would
We
be
can start those rumors on this pod. That's a fresh rumor.
that's a fresh rumor. I think it's just for 23. Yeah, I think that's that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good number. That's a pretty good. And her
Yeah, I'm not
goal.
sure her stats. Let me try and grab her stats. I think she was really good the year before last. Wolfsburg have kind of dropped off a little bit
Yeah,
as a team.
but Wolfsburg is still a team that
Yeah,
challenges
Champions League.
Champions League. Yeah, they lost in the semifinals, right? I believe so.
A couple of years ago. Yeah, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals to Barcelona this year.
Yeah, I was like, it was semifinals or quarters. I can't remember. It was too many Champions League to remember. No, this year was Chelsea and Barca. Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 years ago she had 4 goals, 4 assists, 3 goals, 3 assists last year, and then just 2 goals this year. So yeah, she has dropped off a little bit. She mostly comes off the bench for Wolfsburg. She's kind of been rotated. She had a hat trick in the Champions League, though, I think, against someone. I forget who.
Yeah.
She had a hat trick, in the Champions League group stage. So she did kind of had a bit of a breakout game. But I think she's just got all the talent in the world, and she's kind of been the next big thing for a while. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting if the Dash went for someone like her. But she's arguably maybe not what the Dash needed, which would be like an experienced NWSL forward who knows how to get 10 goals.
Yeah.
She would be more of like a bright up and coming thing.
Yeah, someone you want to build around, sort of around if she lives up to the hype. But also you gotta remember she's behind Alexandra Pop, who's been
who's also kind of coming to the end of her career.
Yeah,
Um,
but she's still a massive threat up in on the front.
yeah,
So it's like,
yeah, and Eula Brand is at Wolfsburg as well. She's a very good player.
yeah,
It's a
man,
very
that was a player I wanted for the Dash for a while.
Eula Brand.
Yes,
Yeah, Eula Brand. I feel like she might be out of contract as well. Actually, I feel like maybe she might be going.
I think she will be ideal for the Dash. I think maybe not an upgrade for Avery Patterson, but I think someone of her on the other side.
I mean, look, if we want to talk about more positives and exceeding expectations, like Avery
Yeah,
Patterson is so good. Like you don't need
exactly.
you don't need an upgrade on Avery Patterson. She's the best player on the team.
I know, exactly. I know, but like I think before this season, or even the last season, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, maybe Julian Brand. That was a
Like a
player that,
winger, proper winger.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but Avery has fit that perfectly. Has fit that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Avery, again, talk about successes in Houston. I think Avery Patterson's development is, absolutely brilliant. And to make things even better, I think she's evolving. I think she's getting better. And I think, again, the system, being able to have her as a fluid wing back, it just suits her game so well. So
Yeah, and
really,
then
really, really exciting for Avery in this team.
yeah, exactly. And then I think her ability to adapt, not just only for the club team, but also for the national team to play as a left back.
Yeah.
That just gives the team more options. Before I thought she was just on the right side, and now she can do the left back, and she played perfect until she got the you know eye injury. Weirdly on the game, but I think it's just something to look forward to, and I think we will see many good things. Hopefully, maybe you never know. Maybe Maggie will get called up for the futures camp as well.
Mm?
So I think that I don't the way she's performing, I don't see any reasons not to see her going as well. I think before we go to uh continue on previewing Friday's game, we just want to give a shout out. Well, not a shout out, but just to give our condolences to Angel City's Savin King, who went
Yeah,
to heart
absolutely.
surgery. Yeah, I think that's what and everyone NWSL has been thinking about. I think
Yeah.
want to know your thoughts, Theo, about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's shocking the game. I mean, look, first and foremost, all my thoughts are with Savvy and lots of love to her family. I can't imagine having to watch a child go through that on the pitch and how scary that must be. And I'm so happy that she's, so far making a good recovery and progressing and has had
Mm-hmm.
surgery on a heart abnormality on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the bad news is that game should have been stopped and cancelled
Yeah,
once.
postponed it.
Yeah, once Savvy collapsed. I think it was shocking. I was watching at home, writing about it for the Associated Press, which I do on Friday nights, and I couldn't really believe what I was seeing, and couldn't believe that the game was still playing on, and you could see the players were
In shock.
complete in
Yeah.
shock and lost in the trauma of seeing their teammate, go through something really intense. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a misstep by the league to not intervene and just say, hey, we need to pause and make sure this player's okay before we ask anyone to do anything. I think it was a bit of a tough day for the NWSL. But yeah, most important thing is Savvy's doing well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's still I think this league it shows you how young this league is as well.
Yeah,
When it jumps into situations like this.
not being experienced is the right thing. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and I think that also shows I think just the resources and the accountability in towards the women's game as well. I think if it
Mm,
was the men's game, I think you will see an action that will be much quicker and probably be abandoned. But
yeah,
but uh, but I think it just show how it goes. But I think the good thing is that Savvy King's recovery. She had a great surgery, and just hope that we'll see her on the pitch soon if she's healthy and available for it. You just never know after those type of surgeries. But I think other than that, I think we can talk about the game for Friday. The Dash has their Friday matchup on NWSL Plus to face the Portland Thorns. I think the Portland Thorns are pretty much coming back to their old ways without Sophie Wilson, just getting back to speed, adjusting to a life without her, and now and they'll meet the Houston Dash on Friday. I think you and me joke, you and me, Theo, we joke around. We say it's the Sarah Loudon Derby.
Sarah Loudon Derby. Here we go.
Here we go. But
Back in Houston.
back in Houston, she's been a long time here, but now is the assistant coach for Portland. But other than Sarah on the Portland team, how do you view this team? Well, this matchup to go like?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I've kind of, you were saying the Portland Thorns are back. I don't know. They're a kind of funny team to me. I think they're better than maybe people thought they were going to be without Sophia Wilson. I think when she announced her pregnancy, congratulations to her on that. I think everyone expected them to be really struggle this year, and I think credit to the team. I think it's a good squad overall, although it's a squad that doesn't seem to quite fit maybe as a team, but there's a really good collection of players there. It's more about how you get them balanced. But I think they've been pretty good this year, at least at creating chances and being in games. I'm still not really sold on them as again, this really cohesive, perfect unit. It all feels a little bit higgledy-piggledy to me at times. And they've had a really tough go of injuries as well. So
exactly,
they go out and get a great rookie, Kaya Hanks. She looks like she's going to be an absolute game changer. She gets injured. They've been, moving around the defensive unit. Simon Coffey's missed a game. I think it's been really, really hard for them. Their keepers, Mackenzie Arnold and Bella Bixby, keep swapping because of injury as well. So I think actually it's a credit to the players and the depth that they've been able to do so well. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like they are a beatable team, and it's a long way from Portland to Houston. It's been very hot down in the south and in Houston. So I think the Dash have an opportunity to make this really difficult for Portland, who, like I said, are going to be missing players and are going to be tired. And I see it as an opportunity. I don't think, even though if you look at the table, Portland maybe look like they're the better team, I don't think there's that much between these two.
Yeah, I think it just shows that just how the league, close teams are. In theory, who was on fifth? I think the Portland's on sixth position, if I'm not mistaken. They're sixth position, and the Dash are on 10th, it should be like a huge gap, but it really is not. There's a couple of just 1 or 2 points, and so it's shows. But I do believe I think it's a good opportunity for the Dash to. I think what's interesting for me is seeing the Portland's formation. You have what's her name, Castellanos as a forward.
I think that is crazy to me.
That's something that's I can't get my mind around.
And I love Raylan Turner. I think she's a really great young player in this league, and she often gets pushed out wide, even though she seems like more of a number 9. Yeah, it's very nice.
Exactly. And the only pass game she played that was with San Diego. That she has played with a 9, but it's been that kind of combination. And then I think relying on players like Olivia Moultrie, Fleming. I think most importantly, Coffee to dictate the tempo, but I think it's just without the outlet of Sophie Wilson, it's kind of hard for them to get something out of it. But I think it's up to the Dash. I think if the Dash can capitalize on these moments, I think they could get the result. But it's very hard to tell. Very hard to tell what Dash team is going to show up. It's going to be that really defensive. I think it's going to show up that really defensive team.
Yeah,
and pressure.
And it comes back to goals, right, Manny? Like we've mentioned it all show, the goals issue. And so the problem is if Portland score twice, right, let's say 2 goals, you don't really back the Dash to score 2 goals right now. That's a problem. Like we know the Dash can win 1-0. We know these players are committed. We know they are really focused in a defensive structure, especially when they have something to play for. But if Portland get going or get a bit of luck, there's Portland listener, they've had 5 penalties in 9 games this year, which is mad. So this team is getting a little bit of the rub of the green, but they're also getting into the box and making the other team, foul them. So that is a skill in itself. But all that is to say that I do worry that, if the Portland score early or score once and get another, I just don't know if the Dash can come back. But if the Dash score first, and their defensive structure holds strong, yeah, I could definitely see them winning.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like when I see the Dash, I feel like the only way they can win is 1-0. I feel like it's like 1-0 to the Arsenal, but it's like 1-0 to the Dash because that's the only way they can do it. Just grind out the game and get that goal and somehow, some way, somehow, and just you know uh, get that win. But I think importantly, it's at home. You know, you wanted to make sure. I think we try to make that home stand more convincing, more
Mm.
better than past years seasons. So far it's only been one win at home, but it's still trying to get there, Hopefully, it changes soon.
Yeah, something I'd like to see more of is crosses into the box. I think
Yeah,
that could be a real game changer. Kimi Asciano scored a header against the Thorns last weekend for San Diego. It was a kind of kind of in the left back, Perla Moroni kind of dinked it from inside the post to the back, kind of like almost like diagonally to the back post where Asciano headed in.
yeah,
And Louisville got 3-3 up in Portland and battered Portland on set pieces and big crossing opportunities. So I think Portland are weak from crosses. I think they've had to move a lot of players in their defensive organization, set pieces. And we don't know what goalkeeper they're going to play because Mackenzie Arnold's been in and out of the team with an injury. So I do
yeah.
think make that box really difficult, make that box complicated and a place you don't want to be. And I think you can, this could be a really fun game.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think it's gonna be a really good game. I think it's gonna be more open than we saw in Seattle. I think both teams were more defensively. I think this team is gonna be more open, so it's gonna have a lot of exciting football for people who come on Friday. It's gonna be very hot. Summer is back, so I know Theo's happy for that. So it's for summer
I am
football.
not.
I mean, for summer, I don't mean temperature wise, but I mean just footy wise.
Yeah, always love summer footy, hate summer weather.
Yeah, I hate summer weather. Just love summer footy. But I think that's gonna be interesting. But your predictions for the game? Who do you think is going to win?
I'll say 1-1. Is that boring?
No, it's not. That's not. I think it's just very hard to tell. I think, like
Yeah.
you said, so many factors and variables that it could go both anyway. Teams, especially in this league, it's just like
Yeah. What are you
you,
saying?
you, ah, I was thinking. To be honest, I was thinking 1-0 to Dash, and again Maggie
Okay.
goal because of
Maggie goal. I've been meaning to talk to you and Diego. I know Diego's sick, so he can't come on the pod.
I know.
That man, I can't remember if it was you or Diego, was talking such big Maggie Graham hype in the preseason podcast.
Oh no, that was Diego.
That was Diego. Diego was coming in hot. So Diego, if you're listening, well done, because you really were banging the Maggie Graham drum, and she's answering. She's answering.
Do you think she's? I think. You think she has her name in as rookie of the season for the NWSL?
I think she's in the conversation, but I don't think.
I don't think she's going.
I don't think she's going to get it. Yeah, I mean Riley Tiernan.
You're right.
I actually wouldn't. Riley Tiernan wouldn't be my pick, but I think she's going to get a lot of attention because she scored a lot of goals. I do think Tiernan is probably due like a bit of like I think Tiernan's numbers will dry up. I think she's just had a very good patch. Yeah. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. I actually think the rookie of the year for me so far is Lily Real. In Gotham. I think she's slotted in seamlessly. Again, a team with injuries, right? So she's 21 and she's been asked to come in and be a starter from day one. And I think she's just looked absolutely the part, an NWSL player, physical, strong, powerful when she needs to be, but sort of understands the system in Gotham that asks a lot of its players to move around and shift in and out of position. She's been playing left back, but the right side of Gotham likes to get very wide and very high. So she's almost a left-sided centre back, but she's got a really, really good delivery. So some of her kind of passing numbers and threat level has been much higher than you would see for some defensive players. So I think Lily Real is, for me, in terms of all-round player, has been probably the best rookie of the season. But if you take her out of the conversation, Tiernan's goals, Maggie's goals, I think, Maggie's in the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think she will win it, but I think just like Avi Patterson last year. I think every last year deserved a shout out, but I don't know that she was going to win anything. But I think Maggie has more of a chance this year than Avery did last year. Maggie has more impact on the
Yeah, I
team.
mean, impact 3 goals in 8 games is amazing. I mean, that would be. I don't have the numbers to hand, but when's the last time a Dash player scored more than 5 goals?
We're talking about. I think that
Salmon in
yeah
22.
yeah Simon yeah her first season yeah.
Yeah, so like if Maggie gets another 3 goals or something, that would be impressive.
No, I think she would. I think she would. I think that's in her because she's very in the box. She's very you know w- and which is interesting to me. And when I look at games, she's very open. Like no one's tracking her, which is interesting. Which is like she's always open when she's available for crosses and everything. But I think it's just I think she's very knows how to get in positions to be open. But I think so. But I think it's another thing to look forward to. Will she get a goal this season? Will she continue her goal scoring record? It's a lot of things to know. Uh, thank you, Theo, for spending time with us, spending time with us. I know it was a bad start to the pod. I don't know what happened to my computer. I think just it was just happened that week, but it was good. But thank you, Dio, for jumping on. Just let everyone know where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky at Theo Lloyd-Hughes. That's me, and I'm always popping up all over the place.
I know he always is. So if you're from if you're from Houston, you already know Theo. So Theo is always is a good mate. It's a good
Thanks
mate.
so much. Good to see
No,
you, mate.
thanks to for and then thanks for everyone to staying for the Bayou City Soccer podcast here. We Orange and Blueprints. Please always look at us BayouCitySoccer.net or our social media at Bayou City Soccer on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, YouTube, and thanks for our sponsors, Ugly Guppy and Elotes Bravos. So hopefully next week, Theo, it's gonna be a good result. Hopefully we will know NWSL is crazy, so hopefully it's a good result for Dash somehow, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. See you then.
All right, take care.